So, everyone, I want to start talking about campaigning. Now, we're going to look at this like we are with the O.J. Simpson trial with positivist cause and effect and interpretive methods. So, when you watch those two videos, one on Paul Wellstone and the other on what's her name again? The failed senatorial campaign twice. She failed twice. I want you to think in a positivist control experiment ways. So what do we do? So let's say you're campaigning, right? Let's say you're campaigning and you basically are hired to help someone, right? So you're involved in this campaign. Now, you want a commercial that is extremely efficient, that persuades people. So if in the sense of experimental control groups, right, you take a bunch of people, right? In the case of the Minnesota senatorial race with Paul Wellstone or the other senatorial race here, you basically take all the people sitting on the fence, that is the undecided. You take one group of people, have them watch this commercial on, say, Paul Wellstone. Then you take the other group of people, right, all sitting on the fence, and don't have them watch anything. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then when they come back, see if there's an increase, a significant increase, statistically speaking, in the, let's say, desirability of Paul Wellstone after that commercial, right? So what you want to do is ask yourself, right? Does that commercial persuade people to like Paul Wellstone in that senatorial race or the other candidate? What's her name? I mean, she failed twice, so I don't even pay attention to her anymore. But then you have to see what's important about those commercials. But that's a positivist view of the world. You take a big focus group, right? Make them watch a commercial, half of the group, the other half, nothing. They can watch something else, something more innocuous, Donald Duck. And then they come back and see if the people who watched that commercial have an increase in a desirability to vote for Paul Wellstone. That is very important. That's control and experiment groups and campaigning, and they do it. However, that's a more positivist way to see the world, cause and effect. Does the video itself, that is the campaign ad, increase the desirability or the lack of desirability in the perception of the public for a candidate? What's interesting is there's also an interpretive part of this, right? So when you look at the Paul Wellstone, notice the discourse, right? He never says the word teacher. I'm sorry, professor. He says teacher. Why? Because professors, and I don't think it's hard to guess, have this kind of, haughty, supercilious type attitude often, or at least in the eyes of the public, whereas a teacher we can all relate to, right? Oh, he's a teacher. He's actually not a teacher. He's a professor at a university, but he understood the word itself has negative connotations. Then he went out, look at all the imagery, how his family, his wife is very plain. No offense to all the people in Minnesota, but, very plain, not like made up for a movie or anything like that. Everything is on the cheap. One student noted quite astutely that like you could hear people honking their horns and things like that in the background, showing he doesn't have the money like the other candidate. He has what is that, a silo or whatever. I'm not from a farm area. So, what do you put there? Pig fat? No, I think you put the grain or something like that, or what to feed the animals. The rivers. He's just a regular person from Minnesota. A very good commercial, but you can look at it in two ways. One, cause and effect. Does the campaign ad cause an increase in desirability for that candidate? You can use experiment control groups, like I said. And then when you analyze the ad itself, there's actually an interpretive kind of feel to it, right? The discourse, the imagery, etc. And then you look at the other one, McSally. See, I did remember her name. She kind of failed twice. So it's like, you begin to forget these people's names. But then you look at her commercial, which is good in a way, right? Because it's showing she's strong and in the military. But then you have to ask in an interpretive fashion, why did it fail? And in my opinion, and I'd love to get, blowback from this or any criticism, but the war is no longer popular. So, selling it as war, I think the people in the United States are war weary. And, it's kind of like, I think the whole tutu commercial is, or this emphasis is a little, like, so what? I mean, if this was the 1980s, that stuff would go over well, but this isn't. So I think that commercial didn't go over as well. And one is the tutu commercial. One is, unless they're both at the same time, like she's a tough fighter pilot. She did a few of those. So you're welcome to look up all the ones she was doing, McSally, where she was a fighter pilot, etc., which is respectable, right? I mean, I respect her for that, but I think that with the unpopularity of the war, I think that kind of decreased the value of that. So you have to understand people change in interpretive methods. You have to have your finger on the heart of the people, the pulse of the people. So when people say to me or to anyone, what's the point of research methods? Well, think about it. If you're campaigning, right, creating the image and the imagery of a campaign. So that's why when you look at the Willie Horton ad, right, to end with, that is both, cause and effect. Do you watch this and decrease the desirability of Mike Dukakis, but it's also what we call critical race theory. So that Willie Horton ad by Lee Atwater that you saw, and I can also put it up in this week too, is actually like critical race theory, even though that's got a weird now connotation, right? You're not supposed to talk about it, but critical race theory isn't positive. It is how we socially construct the idea of race. So race is important, but does it have a negative essentialization? And that kind of did. Willie Horton, that ad was considered racist, like, oh, black men are gonna, rape your white daughter if you vote for Mike Dukakis. This was kind of the message. And the same thing goes with that revolving door. Why did it have to be an African-American look up at, and look you right in the eye? And then there's another one that's interesting, which I put up, and that is Jesse Helms commercial of a black hand taking a job from a white hand, basically from a white person. So it's like a black man is taking a job from a white person. I think it's affirmative action or something. So that's what critical race theory is. You start looking at it, it's like how we socially construct race. So like when Trump says bad hombres, that's a negative connotation for Latinos. And that's what that's about. So a lot of this campaigning is actually interesting in the fact of both positivism, cause and effect, right? Did this campaign ad or did this image increase or decrease your desirability for a candidate? And two, what that imagery is, right? Are we using race? Are we using other things in order to kind of socially construct a situation? Like, obviously, it doesn't even have to be about race. Paul Wellstone did his as the average person, teacher. He doesn't have $2 million, $3 million. Isn't that much nowadays? But he won the election, and that was a very popular ad. Now, this isn't a political, even though we are focusing on campaigning, I could care less about Republicans and Democrats or Green or Libertarian. I'm just looking at these commercials, what wins and what doesn't. And since I'm not in Latin America, I'm not in U.S. Politics, but more Latin America, I have Uribe of Colombia. That's a poster that I took a picture of in Colombia, Bogota, and it says, asesino, he's a killer, and falsos, the false positives, were people being killed, and then the military under him basically lied and said they were combatants trying to overthrow the government, but they were regular people. It was very sad. So obviously, as a Pinocchio knows, that's Uribe, Presidente Uribe of Colombia. He was a while back, and look at how the imagery is pretty interesting. Love him or hate him, like it's Pinocchio, and you see that kind of stuff all over. So although I don't do U.S. politics, this kind of imagery of what, the interpretive people, how we interpret things is all over the world. And that's what a good mudslinger is. They're able to do clever things like this behind me, or the Wellstone commercial, and then sometimes fail, like McSally, I believe her name was, which love her or hate her, it's not really important. Why did those commercials fail? And then you see kind of the race baiting commercial. That's interpretive methods where you see the black hand taking a job out of a white hand. So thanks for listening to all that, and take care, everyone. I hope you do get kind of a sense of why research methods is important. I know it's a tough class to teach sometimes, but we're also going to apply it to law and other things. I'm trying my best here to sell the class. Take care, everyone.